In 2014, terrorist Man Monis took 18 hostages captive inside a Martin Place cafe in Sydney. Millions watched on as a 17-hour standoff with police brought the city to a halt. The Lindt Cafe siege went down in history. It changed the fabric of our nation forever.
For 10 years, the name of the hero cop who shot dead the gunman was suppressed for his own protection, meaning he couldn't tell anyone what happened inside that building. But after a lengthy court battle, the suppression order was lifted.
Known as Officer A for a decade, Ben Besant has now regained his name and his voice and is telling his story. And for more, we are joined by Ben Besant this morning. Ben, thank you so much for being with us. You know, it's just so massive that you can actually talk about this publicly on the 10th anniversary. What does it mean to you to get your identity back?
Yeah, good morning. No, it is. It has been very important to me to get my name back, and without the help of Channel 7 and Chris Reason, that wouldn't have eventuated. So I have to thank you guys for that. It means a lot to me because I've written a book. I want to share my story, not only of what happened on the day and the brave actions of every TAU officer, but also to share my journey with PTSD and my method of going about fighting it, which I want to get out there to help as many other PTSD sufferers as I can.
Ben, we all know of the horror of that day, but no one experienced it quite like you. And of course, two innocent people died that day, Tori Johnson and Katrina Dawson. You actually held Katrina in your arms as she took her last breath. Walk us through that moment.
Yeah, that's obviously, even today, it's the most difficult moment of my life. I found her in the back corner of the cafe under some tables. She had her face down in her hands, and I rolled her over onto her back, where I knew she was in trouble and her breathing was getting less and less. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't save her or help her. I knew paramedics were coming to the scene. All I could really do in that moment was comfort her, which is what I tried to do, and will her to take another breath. But unfortunately, she took her last one literally in my arms. It's a moment that I'll always remember.
I know that lives with you every day. I've heard you say that, Ben. I think one of the things that struck me so much about your story, Ben, is that you're a person who came from a family of people in service, and you just wanted to be in service. And that's really why you're speaking out now, because you're wanting to help people. Just tell us about that.
Yeah, that's why it was so important for me to get my name and face back, because now I intend on getting myself out there and speaking with as many PTSD sufferers, PTSD groups, and just spreading my message, sharing my journey in the hopes to help as many people who do suffer from PTSD and their families is also a byproduct of sufferers. So, yeah, to get my identity back now, I can do that. And you touched on service, and that's my way now of serving, I believe.
Ben, can you walk us through what your PTSD actually looks like? How does that sort of manifest for you on a day-to-day basis? We know you've spoken about this before. In those days after the attack, you had seen blonde women in the street and you thought that it was actually Katrina Dawson there in the street as well. How does that manifest for you?
Yeah, those symptoms were ongoing for many years. I got to a point I finally met a psychologist I trusted and worked closely with, and gained trust for her. I eventually went into a psych hospital. I was still in denial at that stage that I had PTSD. Once I realised it, my whole thought process changed, where I've never been I've never allowed anyone or anything to defeat me, and that was my new challenge, was PTSD. So with that, I dropped all my inhibitions and tried things that I never thought I would, including yoga and meditation and breathing. So I just applied myself 100% to it. which is what I would encourage anyone who's suffering from PTSD to do. And I'd say today I'm on top of it. I'm back working. I didn't save my marriage, unfortunately, but I see my kids half the time. Yeah, I'm living a good life, and I feel as if I've beaten PTSD to a point that I can live with.
That's so good to hear that. I know a lot of it you detail very powerfully in your book called Tiger, Tiger, Tiger. We really want to lean into what you're calling for today, and that is a national trauma inquiry for first responders, basically caring for the carers. How do you see that looks? What needs to happen?
There needs to be a serious discussion, because the police force is just hemorrhaging numbers, and has been for a long time, and that it hasn't been taken seriously. And any police officer, including myself, you just feel like you're just another number, despite giving such a big part of your life to the job. It essentially becomes who you are. So a parliamentary inquiry needs to happen. The discussion needs to happen right across the country. I'm getting messages daily from a lot of other police officers, first responders out there. So it's obviously a nationwide issue, and I believe this is the best way to bring it to the fore.
Ben, what do you say to other officers who have found themselves in incredibly difficult situations, none so as difficult as yours, but what do you say to them when they open up to you about their own battles with PTSD?
I'd say, as it was in my life and my journey, was you can't beat it on your own. I tried for many years, and I just couldn't. There's so many medical professionals out there and people who treat this, that they are the experts in it, and you just have to drop your inhibitions and trust them, and just try everything they suggest. But also you have to fight it. You have to want to get through it, which it can be done.
Mm.
Ben, thank you so much for joining us today on what we know is a really awful, difficult day. We really appreciate it, and it's a really powerful message that you're spreading, and absolutely crucial to try and bring about change and to help other people, which we know you've dedicated your life to doing. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks very much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Wow.
And how great that he says he's beaten PTSD, and of course how great that he has his voice back, his identity back.
And just his, like, when he talks about managing it, and I think that is the thing, that PTSD is something that you're managing always. And Chris Reason, who is our chief correspondent, who just speaks so highly of Ben and just says he is the real deal.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful story.